Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. I am so glad to be here with you again. It is Wednesday, January 10th, 2024. And welcome back, all you giant slayers, you warriors for the Prince of Peace. We are back here on the channel, and I'm so glad to have you. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I want to send a special thank you to Jay. Thank you so much. You supporting the channel makes it happen. So I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully, harass anyone, never to incite violence or hatred or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal or medical or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. Okay, so I'm so glad to be back with you. I do need to plug here at the beginning of this video. I want to just have everybody remember that your cellular health, your ATP, is the energy production that comes out of your cells that makes your whole body function in its optimal way. And what I love about having C60 Evo as a sponsor for this channel is that the C60 Evo cleans out the garbage from your mitochondria out of your cells. So if you have broken DNA strands, you have all these problems that so many of us have, especially from the generations who've come in suffering through the vaccines. We need as much help cleaning out our cells as we can. And C60 Evo is amazing for getting into your cells, into the mitochondria, and cleaning out the garbage, sticking around in your body for 10 to 14 days and cleaning it out. C60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off, and anybody who contributes to the channel gets 15% off, a separate link and a separate code. And thank you so much for supporting them and supporting yourselves. We're here in the new year. We want to get in our full productive mode, right? We want to be fully, absolutely energized to be those giant slayers. And so we want to clean up our cells. Everything comes from cellular health, ATP production, what your cells get in from what you feed them, right, through your eating, etc., and then what they're able to put out, okay? And they're only able to put out as much power and production as clean as the cells are to create that ATP to fuel you, make you feel well. So consider that and check it out. Links below. All right, so this is going to be kind of a waterfront video. We're going to cover the waterfront. There's so much going on that the waterfront will be huge, and we'll just jump in. Still, the first thing is, like my last couple of videos, the first course of action for our giant slayers out there is that you have to get out there and protest this natural asset companies, this push through the SEC by the New York Stock Exchange to get a new designation of companies that are natural asset companies that will basically literally destroy sovereignty of all nations, but specifically take over our national lands, take over our everything. They're going to take over everything. And so you need to go to sovereigntycoalition.org, sovereigntycoalition.org, and get involved right now on that, because the natural asset companies are going to be globalist companies coming in and getting ownership of our private property, as well as our national parks, our national lands, all of it. Need to go to sovereigntycoalition.org. They have it all set up how you can call and email your specific representatives, and also go to americanstewards.us, where they show you all the comments that have already come in to the SEC. The period is ending on the 18th, so we only have 8 days, but it's the weekend coming up. You have to do it now. Go read the comments at americanstewards.us and then build on them, okay? And add your comments. You can cut and paste. You can use whatever you need to do to protest what's going on here with the SEC trying to push natural asset companies. And so there's that. And so now we want to go into, but I have to say also, while they're going to push this ridiculous bill. While they're going to try to keep the government open with Mike Johnson now capitulating, becoming the next McCarthy, like literally the same McCarthy bill that they're trying to push. You need to call and stop Johnson, who might as well just be McCarthy with a Bible, because he's literally doing the exact McCarthy plan. And so we need you to call your representatives, your senators, and tell them you do not support this. You don't want. We'll shut down the government before we will fund all of the garbage that they want in this funding bill. It's everything to funding all of the Ukraine war, everything. It's so much larger than that, folks. It is literally just a giant spending pork bill for everything that's going to take away your freedom, take away your sovereignty, take away your ability to fight this situation with the culture war. All of it. It's disgusting. You can go to 202-225-3121 for the House, 202-224-3121 for the Senate. And you need to call them and tell them we're going to turf you out if you support what Johnson, Bible McCarthy has done. This is not okay. We need to stop it. So we need your activism there too. All right, thanks for listening to that. So we're going to get into the waterfront. I'm going to talk about, we've got Davos starting next week in 5 days. We have the Iowa caucuses starting in 5 days. We have so much happening this week, and this whole month is going to be intense. And it needs your focus, your participation. And so I'm going to cover a lot about, I'm going to jump into preliminary, what's going on with Davos, and then I'm going to get into it Friday deeper. We need to talk about Poland, and we need to talk about Tusk, who has just basically completely imprisoned a couple of parliament members for just disagreeing with his political globalist aims. And he is setting the stage for Poland to be the launching point for the NATO war against Russia and the jump off into World War III. We're going to talk about that. And before I do that, I wanted to talk about something else because I think it's very important. And this is having to do with what I said yesterday with the NACs, okay, the natural asset corporations, companies, and what's going on with the ethanol. Because this is huge, and this is something I question Trump on a lot because of his huge support. Oh, the Iowa farmers love me because I love ethanol. Well, that's not cool, President Trump. Loving ethanol is not a good plan. We want our regular resources. We want oil and gas and coal done with great ecological control, which they already have in place. Stop the mountaintop removal for the coal, stop, bad things. But those things have already been done, okay? Ethanol is literally like having wind farms and solar farms all over the planet. It is just a giant scourge on the planet to grow corn, GMO corn, Monsanto Bayer for ethanol. That is literally so dangerous to not only the corn, it's dangerous to entire populations. The glyphosate that poisons the water, okay, poisons the air, poisons everything. The GMO corn is disgusting and awful and grows literally the seeds. The way they were designed was that if you eat glyphosate corn, you will grow a little glyphosate factory inside your body. A lot of people don't know that. Vandana Shiva exposed that way back, like 30 years ago, 35 years ago. And it's still going on. But I wanted to just mention this, which comes out of President Moldovar there in Mexico. So the U.S. government is insisting that GMO corn and glyphosate Roundup are not only safe, but that nations refusing to import them without sufficient scientific evidence to prevent that violate the USMCA, the United States, Mexico, Canada Agreement, the USMCA, right? Trump put that in. And And this is massive pressure to allow ethanol companies to come in. I talked about in my last video how they're going in through Brazil, through Lula, to destroy the rainforest, to put ethanol corn in there. It used to be the cattle. Everybody was up in arms about that. But now it's the ethanol. They don't want you to eat meat. They don't want you to be strong. They want you to eat the corn, and they want you to suffer the consequences of the glyphosate poisoning. And so what's going on is that Obrador, AMLO, as they call him, he basically has issued 2 decrees in an attempt to ban GMO corn imports and phase out the use of glyphosate in Mexico. In 2021, he put out a very strong mandate saying we are phasing out of ethanol production. We're phasing out of GMOs. We don't want glyphosate in our country. We want farmer sovereignty. We want to protect our farming and the health of our country. And so what happened is that, of course, the U.S. Came in and said, no, that's not going to happen. And so in 2021, they said in 3 years, we're going to ban not just corn for human consumption, but also the yellow corn designated primarily for livestock. And of course, those of us who will not eat livestock that's grown on corn, grass-fed, grass-finished is the key word there. Because if you don't say grass, everything can be grass-fed now and shot up with the mRNAs, shot up with all the vaccines. It just says grass-fed. It's a complete lie. If it doesn't say grass-finished, then you're screwed, right? So you need to go for grass-finished. But basically saying that they're also going to deny the yellow GMO corn for livestock. And huge pushback by the United States to do with, of course, people like, I think it's Rothstetter or whatever I've been talking about out of Iowa, and who Vivek Ramaswamy has been talking about so hugely, who has been trying to... he has his Summit Carbon Solutions and Summit Ethanol group. He's basically the czar of ethanol and carbon capture in Iowa and in the Midwest, pushing so hard on this. Is he funding Trump? What's going on there? And, I'm still for the full Trump vote. I mean, Trump is 8 million yards ahead of everybody in Iowa with the caucus coming up in 5 days. This is huge. But I need to mention here, the strong arming of Mexico to accept glyphosate and GMO corn. And so what happens here is we see Lopez Obrador then go into a second decree in February of 2023, which was limited. It basically limited his former decree to ban all these things, where he, basically, limited the scope of it. And then he has now caved again through pressure, through the economic threats against Mexico to basically abide by what a panel decision would be in March of 2024. So this is the time to act, to basically say that we are not going to go along with this, and we don't support this ethanol interstellar future where we're going to have to live with massive cornfields, wind farms, and solar panel farms, leaving a giant dust bowl of the entire Western world here with NACs, natural asset corporations, controlling it all, stealing our sovereign land. This is not what we are signing on for, and we are, again, giant slayers. We can get it done. So go to sovereigntycoalition.org, sign those things, send those emails, and protest the natural asset companies, and also protest what is going on here with ethanol and the takeover of farmlands en masse is what's planned with the natural asset companies, is the takeover of farmland to produce ethanol, to make all this supposed green fuel that doesn't work, And so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to touch in here to Davos. So Davos is coming up next week. Their whole their line for this year is rebuilding trust amongst uncertainty and rapid change. So you can, quickly and easily flip that narrative. The translation would be seizing control of all information, okay, locking down and arresting everybody that doesn't go along with the globalist narrative, while they dismantle nation states, block supply chains, shut down food production, and steal everything, all of the assets. That is and of course, don't forget AI and data collection. That is what's going on here in Davos. And so on Friday, I'll do a deeper dive, but the basics here are Anthony Blinken will be there, the Israeli Mossad operative Blinken, he'll be there, Macron will be there, and of course his prime minister seemed to be forcibly resigned recently. She is resigning this week after 20 months gone. Multiple Middle Eastern leaders, Qatar, UAE, the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, will be there. We're going to get Doug Emhoff, Kamala's husband. It was interesting. There was today, because of foul weather, Air Force Two had to divert from its planned flight wherever it was going. So I don't know where Kamala Harris ended up, but that was interesting. Jake Sullivan will be there, of course, the national security advisor. And this is, of course, while we see that Lloyd Austin, SecDef, is missing in action. They say it's 5 days, but no, it's more like 3 weeks gone. Okay, and they covered it up. And of course, the impeachment is going to begin on Lloyd Austin. But doesn't matter because they want Lloyd Austin out. Is he even alive? Is he in a coma? The word is that he had a turbo cancer. Okay, and this is where traders get, they get picked off, right? It's like you sign up for a demonic role, you sign over your soul, and then you get picked off. That's what happens, and that could be what's happening here. So we have this situation where Austin, who has no oath, according to Todd Callender and all the research that his team has done, no oath of office, okay, Lloyd Austin, that we can find for entertainment purposes only. Now, he goes into hospital for turbo cancer that is supposedly prostate and colon related, moving through giant sepsis, comes back, goes back into hospital. He is still missing. Okay, he's not around. All right, and they're planning to replace him. And they want to replace him because they are bringing in someone different who is willing to go forward with the war for NATO to go full bore against Russia. And the situation here is that, with Davos, remember when the Ukraine war kicked off a couple of years ago, we had Davos, and then literally a couple of weeks later, it was war in Ukraine. And I believe, or just want to send out there, it's possible that, after Davos this year, we could get the kickoff of the war with Russia, with NATO, because we have what's going on in Poland, which I'll get into in a second, with Donald Tusk, the guy who was not elected but got forced through as the prime minister in Poland, with the situation with now arresting the two parliament members. I'll get into that in a second, but what they're doing with Austin is they're going to replace him with another guy who is super interested in wanting to put into as close to the Black Sea as they can get it, a carrier group, a battle carrier group, and this is Stravitus. I believe he's a former admiral, or still an admiral, but not in. I don't think he's in office right now. But Stravitus is, I think, going to be replacing Lloyd Austin, and he, of course, knowing NATO strategy so much, he is saying that they'll put ships into the Bosphorus. And this has to do with all the chokeholds of what are the supply chains, all the waterways, okay, of controlling global trade through the water, all of this and his strategies. You have the Strait of Hormuz, the Gulf of Suez, the Strait of Taiwan, the Panama Canal, but the Bosphorus and the cartels are where they would put a battle carrier group in the Mediterranean leading towards the Black Sea. And putting that on a warfare standing has been his idea. And I believe that they're getting rid of Austin so that they can put this guy in. I'll link some links below to do with Jack Posobiec and other people who are talking about this. It makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to dig into this guy and see what we can find out about him, because it's pretty disturbing what could happen if this goes live. And so, we look at this massive infection with Austin, how he got completely sick. It's now been weeks. They didn't talk about it. His deputy was on vacation. She's, everybody says, oh, we didn't know. Of course they knew. They know that there is a change here happening in the Secretary of Defense, in the Pentagon, okay, with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Of course they know. And they've hidden it from the American people. This is complete beyond dereliction of duty. Okay, of course it means impeachment, but is he even alive? We don't know. There's nothing. There's no reports. Okay, so when we look at Tusk in Poland and what's going on there, as I reported in the last couple weeks, there is this whole move towards war with Russia out as Poland as the staging ground for what's going to happen there. And it's so important to understand this. So we have a huge rally, and there's huge prayers needed that tomorrow in Warsaw, it's happening, as you watch this, it's probably happening because it's so much later there than it is here, that there is going to be a massive, massive rally in Warsaw for there being, as Duda said, these two parliamentarians came for sanctuary in the Presidential Palace in Poland. Duda accepted them. And then Tusk had the military police go into the Presidential Palace in Poland and extract them and put them in jail, and they are in prison, taken from the Presidential Palace. Okay, this is coup-like behavior, right? And it's because they are changing guard here in the United States with the Secretary of Defense to put the new guy in, the guy who's intent on war, intent on putting our battleships into the Bosphorus. And we're going to see something pretty major going on if Stravitus gets in as Secretary of Defense. And so Tusk has wanted to draft the Polish. He wants to stage the NATO war against Russia for World War III. He used to be head of the EU Commission, okay? And he is put there. He wasn't elected. He again, same thing, a selection was of him to be prime minister there. He was before. I've talked about all his money laundering with his son. He has his own Hunter Biden, John Tusk, with massive Ponzi schemes underneath him. And so they're putting together this thing with Davos, discussing the war in Ukraine, all of it for how they're going to launch a war out of NATO against Russia and to continue to destroy Ukraine, but also to bring the United States, bring Western countries in, because the whole push is they know they're losing the information in the war. They're losing the narrative. They're losing humanity. They need a war because everybody is awakening to the massive plan here to take our sovereignty through the NACs, to take our sovereignty through the WHO pandemic treaty, to take our sovereignty through the plan to steal it all, right? By 2030, there'll be no private property in their eyes because they plan to steal it all and build back Babylon better. And so, but we're in this crisis where everybody's awakening so hugely. If they don't have a massive crisis, they can't pull it off. And so Tusk, along with Olaf Scholz, the chancellor out of Germany, threatening to draft the Germans, right? We have, and the other thing about, what's his face, Stravitus, he was the one who said that we should, that Ukraine should now draft the women. Okay, it wasn't not enough that the men in their 40s and 50s are slaughtered. Now draft the women of Ukraine to go in and get slaughtered and raped and harassed. Just awful. I mean, it's awful. There's a reason you don't draft women. Okay, and I am never for it. I'm never for a draft. I'm against war, 100%. But you never can draft women. Okay, it's not acceptable in any realm of warfare. And just because Israel has women go through their 3 years of duty or whatever it is, 2 years, no. Giant line of no to drafting women. It is heinous and awful and against nature in every way, against God, to draft women into war. And it's drafting is against nature, but there is a time where you have to defend a country, and I'm all for volunteers of women wanting to do what they feel that they're capable of doing, and that's a volunteer situation. Okay, that means you're ready. That means you're accepting your duty. What's going to happen? Very different than a draft, and what can happen to women in war. And so let's go on from there. So I told you about Tusk and what's going on with in Poland. Huge rally happening probably as we speak when you watch this video, because it's already so much later there. And they need to watch out for a Fedsurrection in Poland. This seems like a planned situation to set off another martial law type lockdown in Poland by Tusk to bring about, what happened, in Brazil. We have Bolsonaro. The 2 days ago, January 8th, is their Fedsurrection, a year ago anniversary, where, of course, Bolsonaro was demonized because people protested the steal of the election by Lula. Big, huge, massive rally there in Brazil on the 8th, bigly in support of Bolsonaro. To protest what's going on with Lula. Lula is the one selling out the Amazon to people like, ethanol solutions, Summit Ethanol Solutions, right? There in Iowa, selling out the Amazon to produce something like 4 billion bushels of corn for ethanol production for the NYSE takeover, buyout, laundering of money, grift, okay, that is the Natural Asset Corporation steal. And that's what they're doing in Poland. Okay, that's what they're going to do in Poland. And so people need to be super careful in Poland to not be part of a Fedsurrection. But Polish are stalwarts. They've stopped, what did they stop? Like hundreds of Islamic attacks, okay, in their country over the years, over the centuries. They've stopped so much. The Polish are deeply intense, religious Christian people, and also very, very stalwarts for their country. And so I believe that the Polish will be massive in stopping what will be this launching of the NATO war. And I know I'm going on and on about it, but I really feel strongly. I think it's kind of a big deal that we're looking at the launching through Tusk of putting a staging ground, a country out of NATO, to be the place to launch World War III against Russia, because that's what they're going to discuss at Davos. That's what they're going to push for, and that's what we need to understand. And so let's pray for them. Let's pray for them right now. When you end this video, just pray for the Polish people, the resistors. Same with Germany. As Olaf Scholz says, we're going to put in a draft. We're going to send you to war with Russia. Throughout Germany, massive farming protests, huge blocking of roads, blocking of freeways with thousands, like tens of thousands of tractors, same as in the Netherlands. They're hugely protesting the takeover of their sovereignty, of their farmlands by the globalists, and that's what they're getting fed back is we're going to take you to war instead. And that is their plan, okay? And so I'm going to leave that there. I want to move on to a couple other things here. One is to just mention, a couple mentions. We had Trump denied by the judge in New York, the civil fraud case, the civil suit fraud baloney, where they're trying to steal everything that Trump has. That Trump is now denied that he is not allowed to give his own final closing arguments. Okay, and that is so anti-constitutional. It's completely against everything in our legal system that he is being denied giving his own closing arguments. And it is, of course, because they don't want to hear anything that Trump has to say that will be completely spot on truth. Like a gunshot a bullet point. Basically, that what I'm trying to say is that Trump says things very concisely and very clearly, and they don't want the American people to hear that. They know it will be heard a million times 30 million, times 40 million, times 50 million across the country, that he will give these closing arguments perfectly. And they won't allow it to happen as they attempt to steal his fortune. And so let's get into a couple other things. I want to mention here also Amos Miller. Amos Miller is the guy and his family, his Amish family out of Pennsylvania, who has been raided by the feds over and over and over to do with him selling raw milk, raw butter, untreated beef and lamb, untreated with anything that the USDA tries to make them, stick into the animals to give them poison that then we eat. He and his family and the Amish and his community in Pennsylvania have been fighting the feds for decades, and they have been winning magically, but now they've been raided again. And I just want to tell everybody that, you need things like raw butter, raw milk, but you do need butter. It has absolutely an essential fat source for proper genetic function. It has certain properties in it that literally are the only source of getting some of these fatty acids into your body come from butter. And it is one of the primary sources of nutrition. So you need your butter. Your raw butter is, of course, your best. But let's pray for Amos Miller. I'll try to link below how you might be able to help him and his community fight the feds who have raided them again for producing clean, good, awesome nutrition for humanity. And so let's move on from there. I'm going to just, like I said, it's going to be a waterfront video tonight. There's so much I could get into. But I think I want to, we had the eighth tranche of the Epstein stuff released yesterday. And I'm not getting too deeply into all that unless something really, jumps out at me. But I did want to talk about how far this goes back. And it really gets into the Rothschilds. Again, turns out you only have this giant, massive, Mossad run. It's always England, Mossad, the Russian oligarch, this whole Trotskyist situation, and then the USA, CIA. They're all in it together, right? Creating the child trafficking rings, creating the bribery rings, get you on tape having sex with kids. It's all, we all know it ad nauseum, and it's disgusting to its core, and it's satanic, and it's evil. And that's why we get out and fight. We're the giant slayers. We're going to stop them. And this, it is really great that in general, the public is getting to see some of this, although you don't ever see it on MSM. You don't ever see it there, but people less and less are watching any MSM, and instead they're hearing about it, and it's very interesting. And so I wanted to get into just talking about way back. This has been going on forever, and it's only because we have internet now that it's so profuse, it's so giant, because as the technology grows, so does the abuse and the horrors grow, unfortunately, because if we all just were doing God's golden ruler, if we were just golden rulers, none of this would be happening. But unfortunately, it is happening, and it's been happening for a very long time. And so I wanted to mention the Rothschilds and their Society of the Odd Fellows, the Order of Odd Fellows, back that they started in 1819. And people need to understand that this farming of children, this creation of breeding of children, didn't start yesterday. It didn't start in the last 50 years. It started a long time ago. It's been going on since Babylon and before, this thing of sacrificing children and using their goodness and their essence and their bodies for their demonic longevity project, which is transhumanism and their satanic worship. But there is a situation with the Rothschilds funding the Order of Odd Fellows and the Daughters of Rebecca. And the Order of Odd Fellows started in the USA, I believe, in, was it 1819? That long ago? Or was it 1919? It might have been 1851. I'm a little squirrely at this moment. I'm trying to feed through my notes here. But basically, the Rothschilds funded an order, okay, to basically be a baby breeding farm in order to create massive amounts of orphans to sell, okay, and educate. And it's huge. And so the Order of Odd Fellows was dedicated to the education of orphans and managing orphan asylums. But those orphans didn't come out of nowhere, right? They weren't stolen out of the Ukraine at that point. They were actually bred. And this came out of the system that is the Daughters of Rebecca. And it was a breeding of children where then these children would be sold hugely, massively in the United States. And they would be sold elsewhere as well, across Europe. But the whole mindset was just like the Berlin School set up by Frederick the Great of the Prussian Empire, which gave birth then to the Skull and Bones Society, dedicated to the education of children. A lot of people don't know that about Skull and Bones. They were literally dedicated to the education of children, Skull and Bones. This is all about mind control. Okay, it's all about setting up institutions to get hold of children, especially those that have no family and have no attachment, have been totally broken from having a mother and father to protect them or love them or give them what is their loving goodness, that is family, that is mom and dad, and broken from that, and so that they can create more and more psychological studies on how they can dominate humanity, but especially how they can use these specific children to do their bidding. And the Rothschilds has been known to have bred something like 100,000 plus children. Philippe Eugene de Rothschild basically was in charge of privately breeding 100,000 plus babies. And this is both with Rothschild actual DNA, okay, and other DNA of their specific groups that they wanted the DNA to come from, royals, etc. You get the Don May, you get your creepy players in there, 100 plus babies, 100,000 plus babies, and supposedly also Adolf Hitler is one of these babies, right? This isn't just speculation. This is actual reality. When you look at Adolf Hitler's rants and his crazy stuff, where, the claim that he had a Jewish mother, that he was one of these babies. And this comes out of the Daughters of Rebecca, and hugely connected to the Masonic, the Jewish Masonic edge, the edge of the Masons, that is the Jewish edge, which is B'nai B'rith, right, who created the ADL, by the way. And so much of this to do with pedophilic mind control and through ritual abuse, etc. And so this whole thing about creating learned helplessness in these kids, setting them on a mission, and setting them up with, we are your only real family, and you will always answer to us, and selling them on the open market in the United States. So let me go further a little bit into this. When we look at baby farms and the creation of, Zionist operatives or Jesuit operatives or all of this, we have to, basically the main tenet is to not have a family, and also to go against God, right? It is to go against everything to do with the Golden Rule, to go against, in the Don May style, of there being the opposite of morality in order to both keep secrets, but also to push the agenda of Satanism, and also to push forward the Luciferian power of there being this anti-Christ energy moving through these children. And it's very sad, but let's just look at it. So we look at the Rebecca degree. They have symbols. Okay, this is the Daughters of Rebecca in the United States. Their degrees or their symbols had to do with the beehive, which was considered cooperative industry, the beehive. Cooperative industry that had to do with the greater good, that you sacrifice yourself to be a hive mind woman to generate for the greater good. The moon and 7 stars, of course, that represents the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, very much connected always with off-planet control, aliens, all of this way back when. But the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, in the moon has always been used massively in occult ritual abuse. The dove being the supernatural fertility, you're being impregnated by, the supernatural force. You're doing the work of Lucifer. You're doing the work of a supernatural force. And then at the same time, juxtaposing this with the symbol of the lily being purity. And you are pure. You're purified through these actions of contributing babies for this baby farm. It is nuts, but it's true. And then they had the Scarlet Degree. The Scarlet Degree was the ultimate place that they got to in the Daughters of Rebecca. And it's so funny when you look at things like Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. Scarlet, that crimson red was always, put through Christian terms as that's the sign of adultery, the Scarlet Letter, all of that. And there was massive persecution that went on through that. But this Scarlet Degree, this red degree, being that's where you achieve a place of leadership in this Daughters of Rebecca, which now allows men through this. After the 1970s, they're like, dudes, are allowed in the Daughters of Rebecca. And so hundreds of thousands of orphans literally were sold in the United States. They advertised, delivered. So the 1850s onward, the Oddfellows delivered hundreds of thousands of orphans, distributed and sold in the United States. Okay, this gets later connected to Jewish family services. It gets connected to, Catholic charities, all of it. And they're all in on it. It's all the same people. Okay, so Epstein and the baby farms and what's going on now is just the next level. Okay, the next level of awful. But it's pretty awful then. Okay, it's pretty awful then for these kids, because they would advertise them and be delivered by train and sold at fairs. They would be sold at the fairs. Okay, these huge fairs that used to happen in the United States. There would be children sold by the Oddfellows at these fairs. Okay, And it was all managed by the Oddfellows. And oftentimes it was run by former orphans. Okay, so the orphans, like if you look like, what's her name, Marikova, or can't remember, the woman, Epstein, the pilot, the girl who was bought at age 14 out of Yugoslavia. She was age 14, sold to Epstein, the Mossad. It later became a pilot for Epstein, became a higher up and recruiting and gathering tons of girls, piloting the Lolita Express. Same thing here in the Oddfellows, funded by the Rothschilds, who had already outside of this sired hundreds of thousands of children to become operatives in this mind control system. It's so crazy. You're like, what? But it's true. It's true. And this is how the world is run, through creating trauma-based mind control, that then these operatives get into running society for these Luciferian wannabe gods. And the people who are taking over the entire financial system, the people who are pushing the one world government, these are the same people who created the Oddfellows and bred hundreds of thousands of orphans through the daughters of Rebecca. And so they would be, as I said, sold in the United States, and several members of importance, several U.S. presidents were members of the Oddfellows. Albert Pike, which we've all heard about, was a member of the Oddfellows. And the orphan trains in the USA began literally just after the Daughters of Rebecca was formed. So the orphan trains started into the U.S., the selling of orphans, right after the Daughters of Rebecca was formed, okay, in the late 1800s. And this was to do with breeding and surrogate motherhood. And so it was, there was huge, like in prominent areas, like fancy areas of Connecticut and New York State, huge orphan asylums there where people would go and buy these kids. And as I mentioned, Philip Eugene de Rothschild was at the forefront of this in the 1800s, and the Skull and Bones Society really picked up on this as well, and very much would take in people into Skull and Bones that were Oddfellow orphans. If you look at, the guy in charge of the OSS, I think Matt Damon played him, in that movie. I can't remember it now, but they would take in these orphans into Skull and Bones, these people who didn't have money, didn't have family, and would basically torture the crap out of them and mind control the crap out of them and use them to become huge operatives, like the guy who became Dulles, who became the Dulles brothers in the OSS. You can't make it up, okay? And I know I'm kind of going on about it, but I really, it is so important what's going on with finding out the Epstein, tranches and who's involved and all this. People, they're all involved. And if we just accept that and know that, then we can move on doing what we need to do. What we need to do is stop the natural asset corporation takeover of the entire world's sovereignty. We need to, stop Mike Johnson from putting through this same McCarthy plan of funding the government to steal all of our money and assets and leverage our future. But it's important to get, the background, important to understand what came before and understand who's behind it. The same banksters, okay? The same banksters that now we have Larry Fink, in BlackRock laying off 6% of their clients, their employees, especially in the ESGs, because they're going to take those positions over with AI. They don't need those people, and they want to get shut down their DI, area, the diversity, inclusion area, because they don't need them anymore, because they already have captured the information war in their minds, but they also see that multiple states, something like 26 states now, is suing BlackRock to get out of their hedge fund because they have the pensions that are killing profits. But they don't care because they're still going to Davos. Larry Fink will be there. You've got multiple CEOs, 500 CEOs going to be there that are going to talk about how they can get these NACs to take hold. And so you need to call and write and rattle the rooftops over natural asset companies, and this trying to put them into the SEC, make them a new group, a group that does not create or produce anything, but allows globalist corporations to steal our natural resources, our national parks, our farming industry, our easements of land that are connected to anything that has to do with a natural preservation. But it goes beyond that. It's going to get into them finding a way to steal your private property. And that is the end game. And it's where they are headed. And so the other people going to be there at Davos starting on Monday, it'll be McKinsey and Company. So Nikki Haley, right? She was McKinsey and Company, Buttigieg. These are McKinsey operatives that, just like the Jesuits, are sent into countries as economic hitmen to decide how they can take over the country economically. And McKinsey is huge at Davos. And Nikki Haley, they haven't said she's going to be there, but I'd be surprised that if she's not going. I don't know how she would, considering the caucuses and whatever, but her people will be there. They're trying to say, there'll be a surprise uptick in Nikki Haley in Iowa. No, there's not going to be a surprise. They're just going to tell you through MSM that there was a huge uptick for Haley. Iowa will probably be the end of DeSantis, or it could be that Haley makes a deal with DeSantis that he'll be the VP. This is what's going to happen. There's going to be at Davos the discussion of how do we roll out a World War III with NATO, with the new SecDef, now that they took out Lloyd Austin in the U.S., who's willing to put in all the battleship carriers into the Bosphorus, moving through the Mediterranean, close to the Black Sea, and threatening Russia. And then Tusk is going to allow there to be a land-based World War rollout through Poland. And I just pray for the people in Poland right now who are literally marching and rallying as the giant warriors that they are and have been for the last 100 years, protecting their country and their faith and their people, to stop, what is now the first political prisoners, as Duda has said today, that the first political prisoners, to members of parliament who were arrested for their political views, speaking out against Tusk and his globalist agenda to bring Poland into war. This is huge, and we're all a part of this global humanity, and absolutely anti-globalism to control humanity. We are meant to be sovereign. We are meant to be individual nations. God favors nations. That is absolutely paramount part of Scripture. And so we are going to fight it, and we're going to pray. And I know this has been a little squirrely. This video today, I talked about things and in ways that I didn't intend to do, but that often is what happens on this channel. But Friday, I'm going to dig into what's going on with the agenda for Davos and for next week, what's planned. Get more into the ethanol billionaire guy, and get really deep into, how do we come out in a more unified way to fight this? Because there are multiple fronts popping up offering, possible unified fronts. And I think we really need, as humanity across nations, to fight this globalist agenda together. Okay. And there are some things popping up along those lines that I'm going to get into on Friday. So I wish you every blessing in these next 2 days. Please be willing to get engaged, willing to do the work. If, with the caucus coming out in Iowa on the 15th, get your long johns, get your Arctic gear. I know it's like 7 degrees there, but we need you. We need you to be there. Don't believe the media that says, oh, Trump is so far ahead. Doesn't matter, no, it matters. They're pushing this Nikki Haley edge, right? They're going to try to push it that, oh, Nikki Haley and Trump are neck and neck. No, that's a complete lie, a total lie. Chris Christie dropping out today or about to drop out. It's all lies, folks, what you hear from the mainstream media. As I know, I'm talking to the choir here, the amazing, beautiful, godly choir. I'd love to hear all of your voices singing. And so I'm going to leave it there, folks. I hope you got something from this video. If you did, please help to support the channel. I want to do more videos. I want to be here and around more. And of course, if you want to support somebody who supports me, you can support c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off, or support the channel. You get 15% off with an email sent to you with a different code. But the important thing here is that we all be active. When I opened and said we're giant slayers, it's because we're meant to be. We have that inside of us. We are God made. And we are like David, each and every one of us. And we have the power inside of us with whatever it is, whichever avenue is your specialty, is your gift from God that you want to foster. And even if you're afraid of it, to go out and do it anyway, because you are protected by the divine creator, because we are eternal. Don't fear death. Don't fear anything. We have eternal life. And when you absolutely commit, to the good, to God, then you will be protected in every way. And it will come back to you in your community once you step out. And the thing is, if you don't act and you just kind of hide, that comes back at you too. Right? It's this thing where if you're going to do something, you might as well go the whole way, right? You might as well go the whole way to be everything that you are capable of being, because they're going to come at you just as hard. If you look at the history of every totalitarian regime, they will come at you just as hard, and usually harder and quicker for the traitors, the people who betrayed, their countries, all of it. They're the first ones to go if there is a conquering force that comes through. You are way more respected and way more heavy weighted, in your bearing and your standing if you go the whole way with what you're capable of, and especially within, for you to be able to respect and love yourself. So, didn't mean to preach here at the end, but just saying, now is the time, right? It is January. This is go time. So get out there, do your thing. And all the best to you. Love you. You are free. And I will see you on Friday.